Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, fellow project managers, wherever you are in the world. I'd like to welcome you to this very brief discussion about the implication of the PMBOK Guide 7th edition on the project management landscape. I know lots of you have had these questions about the 7th edition. So why don't we take a look at the recent FAQs from your friends at the PMI. It says here in the very first question, why is PMI changing a guide to the project management body of knowledge? Well, that question can be answered in a variety of ways, but the bottom line is as times are changing, we need to evolve, right? As times change, we got to evolve to move with the times. And project management is becoming a lot more agile than before. And it's focused quite a lot on human behaviors and how people process information inside, as opposed to just the practices. Now, both are important. Don't get me wrong. Those of you who've been watching the channel, you know my stance on the 7th edition, but I'm just bringing to you what PMI is saying here. So it says the evolution of technology has changed the way work gets done for many professions, including project management. Based on feedback from project managers across industries and around the world, we heard there was room to improve the content and structure to reflect current ways of working. Practitioners are now tasked with identifying the right delivery approach, predictive, adaptive, or hybrid. And honestly, trust me, I think PMI hit a home run with the Agile Practice Guide where that's concerned. So it was a great job there. And I'm hoping that they put some of that stuff into this new edition. It says, we recognize that we need to update the PMBOK Guide in order to stay relevant. Hello, of course. So that's already known. You folks already know that. Let's go down and take a look at what else. What do I need to know about the new structure of the PMBOK Guide? Overall, the goal with the next edition of the PMBOK Guide is to make the content more user-friendly, dumbed down, I hope not, and relevant to project managers using predictive, hybrid, and adaptive or agile approaches based on the draft in development. The next edition will put the focus on project outcomes in addition to deliverables. There will also be an entire section dedicated to the topic of tailoring. Now, you know why you watch these, because you want to hear my commentary. So I'm not just going to share it with you without giving you my 2 cents. So my 2 cents is, was that ever a problem talking about the outcome? I think it was, to be quite honest and fair. A lot of companies are so focused on the deliverable without focusing on the outcome of the implementation. In other words, we call this benefits, talk about value. And the question is, are you getting the value, the full benefit of what you embarked on? So that is what PMI are trying to bring to the surface, and it's a good call. The process groups and ITTOs will be referenced throughout the next edition, but are no longer fully included in the publication. We will continue to make them available through digital offerings like PMI standards. Honestly, that is not a problem at all. I think out of the 100 and something plus outputs or inputs and the multiple tools and techniques, there's got to be a shaving. I mean, it goes without saying, if you are trying to use every single tool in the toolbox, something's wrong in how you're perceiving the PMBOK Guide, because that's not how it's meant to be. You got to tailor, okay? So that is not a problem. I think it's a good call to limit them to, let's be honest, some of those tools and techniques in this book, they're hardly ever used by anyone. And that's why on the current exam, lots of you are seeing earned values not showing up. Now, don't get me wrong, because I've written books on earned value and I strongly stand behind earned value as being used where appropriate. But if you don't have the bandwidth and the arsenal to use earned value, what are you doing with it? You can scale it down to make it very simple, but a lot of folks might end up complicating things and confusing themselves. So I'm not saying earned value is one of the tools in the data analysis toolbox that's going away. No, it's not going away. None of this stuff is going away. It's there. A lot of the stuff in the book was there before the PMBOK guide was written. I mean, the DoD and NASA back in the late 50s, early 60s, they conceived the WBS. So seeing a WBS or, that WBS dictionary in the PMBOK guide, no, it's not an invention of the PMI. So what I'm saying in essence is there are some things that should be included and there's some things that just have to go because hardly anyone uses them. Maybe the 1% of the project management population uses them. So I have no issues with that. All right, when is the PMBOK Guide 7th edition expected to be released? Now, just full disclosure, I did not pre-read these. I want you to get my raw and unfiltered opinion. So my snide remark in when is the PMBOK Guide 7th edition expected to be released, I think they need to go buy crystal ball to make that prediction. Because for the past 2 years, it's been kind of in suspended animation. When is it going to happen? No one knows when it's going to happen. So it's a joke seeing this. Anyway, let's read. It says, the content is in its final draft. All right, we'll hold our breath on that one, PMI. And we're engaging with the last group of stakeholders. No. You are not engaging with the last group of stakeholders. I am one of the last group of stakeholders. You have not engaged with me, PMI, because you know my comments. Go watch my video, right? Disaster waiting to happen, 7th edition, just Google it. You know I'm not buying any of this. I'm just letting all of this slide. It's a new year, right? So I'm letting some of it slide. But there's a lot of what PMI has done with the 7th edition that's bad. Lack of stakeholder engagement. It's pathetic. You say you've written a chapter 13 in the 6th edition and you don't engage us? No, I ain't buying it. So anyway, they're saying the last group of stakeholders as part of our efforts to ensure all voices are heard. Who are you kidding? We are planning on for 2021 release. Watch this, from the #1 project management association. In fact, maybe I shouldn't call them #1. From one of the leading project management associations in the world. Read their lips. Oh, I'm planning for 2021, but I can't give you a date. Seriously, PM, is that the best you can do? Come on now. What's the matter with you folks? Do you need to be taught critical path, and do you need to be taught what Mr. Goldratt put into the TOC book? Come on now, whether you are in the world of Agile or you're in the world of predictive, I expect better from the top project management association in the world. Can't get your act together to give your stakeholders a date? Seriously? That makes me question the value of what you have in the 7th edition. Don't get me started. As soon as we have a final date for the publication of the PMBOK Guide 7th edition, we will announce this. Oh dear, I'm cracking up here. Through all of our normal communication channels. Are there any abnormal channels? Yes, they are. By going to Amazon and finding Amazon telling you the date of your top organization's standard, you know there's a problem. Come on, PMI, wake up, wake up. What are you doing? Wake up. I think I need to get you some performance enhancing project management book. How about using this or this? Huh? My goodness. All right. Until then, we will continue to provide updates and links to helpful resources. Oh dear. Let's move on. Can I still use the process groups and knowledge areas? Yes, in fact, the process groups is one of the models in the models, methods, and artifacts section of the draft guide. Well, thanks for letting us know, PMI, after 1 year of keeping us in suspended animation, huh? Refusing to come out like Moses with the scrolls hiding in the caves. You don't want to show us what's going on? Why? What are you scared of? The concepts from the knowledge areas will be seen in multiple projects, but come on now, let's just bring it out into the open. Anyone that is trying to refute the 5 process groups needs a head check, because this is what Stewart and Deming put on the map. Why would you argue with that? My activities today are centered around the 5 process groups, and so are yours. You wake up in the morning, right? You decide to get out of bed. That's initiating. Hopefully you planned the day before, and even if you didn't, you could use iterative planning, and then you do whatever you're doing. You follow the plan. All right, now I'm going to do this. Now, many of you use these things, post-it notes, to do your planning. You execute, and then you check. Am I go? Uh-oh, it's getting late. I need to go make dinner. Oh, I need to get on that meeting. That's monitoring and controlling. And then end of the day, shut it down, go back to rest. That's the 5 process groups. So anyone arguing with that needs a head check. All right. How does the release of the PMBOK Guide 7th edition impact the project management professional certification exam? Aha, this is the part I've been waiting for. All right, wise ones at PMI, tell us, talk to us. It says the PMBOK Guide is an input to preparing for the PMP exam and is listed as a reference, but it is not a test preparation tool. The new PMP exam, which launched 2nd of January, will continue to use the PMBOK Guide 6th edition as one of the several references. The new exam has been planned for some time and is not related to the release. I think there's dust in my eyes. Am I reading? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? The new exam will continue to use the 6th edition as a reference. Okay. The new exam has been planned for some time and is not related to the release of the PMBOK Guide 7th edition. We strongly recommend that candidates refer to the current exam content outline for up-to-date information about preparing for certifications. Information about PMI certifications and future can be found here. Now, PMI, you know I love you guys. I just got to give you grief because what you've done is really bad for our stakeholders. You don't do things like this. Don't keep things in the dark. You know, there's one of the things my mentor says. He says, only secure leaders give power to others. You're taking power away from us because you don't want us to comment. You don't want the wider populace to comment. And that's why you've kept this in the dark for so long. And I'm really not very happy with how you've proceeded on this journey. There's a lot of improvement, a lot, such as coming clean and putting out a draft that everyone can comment on, as we did in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th edition. So I'm not very happy with you folks. I'm not happy at all. You folks have disappointed gazillion of your stakeholders. Just so you know, if you don't know, you're out of touch. Speak to people that have nothing to do with the development of the 7th edition in your little cave, and you'll get to hear the raw and unfiltered opinions of many. Or let's keep it simple. How about you go to your own website? How about you go to projectmanagement.com? Wonderful repository. You see, that's the thing about PMI that grieves me. You create great stuff and you don't use it. You create projectmanagement.com and you got people yelling, screaming, hidden at the door, and you're not listening to them. Is that a good way to proceed? No, it's not. No, it's not. All right. Once the PMBOK Guide 7th edition is released, it will replace 6th edition as reference to validate the content. All right, we'll see how that goes. 7, what are the authorized training partner programs licensed PMP exam prep materials based on? They're developed to address the PMP content. Can we just keep it honest? Let me give some candid advice. When you are developing a course, I don't know whether I should address who to address at PMI, learning team, whoever you are. When you are developing a course, get the course tried out on real PMP exam students and make sure they have a guide that they are meant to use alongside, because the feedback that I'm getting from a lot of students about some of the material that's been developed is there's so much disconnect between your awesome Agile practice guide, and trust me, I love this book. I think you guys did a home run. I don't know what you're doing with the 7th. And this one, the 6th edition, great stuff. It needs a little bit of tweaking. But I have students saying, I'm trying to use both of those books, and I can't make sense of what is in this course. I cannot correlate them. I cannot even correlate them to the content outline. You know how frustrating that is for students? So for those of you just come in, I'm just giving my raw and unfiltered comments about PMI's FAQs. Never seen them before. Reading them for the first time, and you're getting my raw and unfiltered opinion about them. All right. The course materials were developed to address PMP exam content outline. If the exam content outline changes, ATP partners will have access to updated course materials. Okay. How does the release of the PMBOK guide 7th edition impact the CAPM exam? The current CAPM exam will continue to be based on the 6th edition as dictated by the exam content outline. 6th edition is a test preparation tool that candidates may leverage to prepare for the PMP exam, CAPM exam, beg your pardon. More detail can be found in CAPM handbook. We strongly recommend that candidates refer to the current exam content outline for up-to-date information. Okay, standard language. When will the CAPM certification exam be updated to incorporate the concept from PMBOK guide? You know my run unfiltered opinion, they can't even tell you when the 7th is going to be published, let alone when an exam is going to change. That's a silly question, whoever asked that. While we eventually update the CAPM exam, we have not yet released a date. Told you so. Once we have a launch date for a new CAPM exam, we'll let the community know. Again, those of you come in, I'm just taking a look at these FAQs. And I think if you are getting ready for any of these exams, I think you should do them in the next 6 months. Those of you watching this video after the fact, maybe the 7th edition will be in effect by then. It's not a showstopper, in my opinion, hopefully not. To be quite honest, the exam seems to be becoming a kind of a different exam. You get what I'm saying? A little bit of a different exam. It doesn't hold as much foreboding and ferocity as the old exam used to. Do we need to knock on a substance? Did I just jinx that? No. That's what I've heard. I don't know. But anyway, let's move to number 11. Does the pending release of the PMBOK guide 7th edition mean that content from prior editions is no longer valid? Whoever asked that question, you're a genius. So let's see what PMI say. The good news is that key learnings and concepts from the PMBOK guide 6th edition, you didn't answer the question. They said previous editions, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. The 6th edition, you've kind of made it sound like you're not sure the 7th edition has enough firepower. And I honestly don't think it does. I think the 6th edition and the Agile Practice Guide, if tailored, can present a more formidable force. Look, this book right here, I'm a raving fan of it. I tell you, raving fan. I think the Agile Practice Guide is what they should have focused on building into what they had in the 6th, and they didn't do that. Anyway, the good news is the learning and key concepts of 6th edition remain valid and are referenced in sections of the draft guide. Okay, well done. We'll give you a medal for that one. We recognize that many project managers have used specific elements like the process groups and ITTOs very successfully in their own project environments. If you are among them, you can continue to use. We give you the permission. We're not the police. That's what they're saying in essence. What is the update process and who is involved? All right, let's read. The development of the revised standard followed our established and ANSI-aligned development process, whereas the guide followed the process used in the development of other PMI guides, such as the Agile Practice Guide. Both documents were developed with input from over 200 participants in focus groups and workshops, iterative reviews, and the content drafted by over 70 practitioners. Represent the diversity. It's PMI, this is where you get it wrong. This is where you're not following chapter 13, right? Why not go and read chapter 13? I'm not going to teach you chapter 13. Go read it. Because what you've done is you've negated about 99.9% of your stakeholders in saying, we took a select 200 people. Meanwhile, we have roughly 3 to 4 million stakeholders, but only 200. That's what you're running away from. The responsibility and the accountability of listening to the audience of whoever wants to participate. So in trying to cut corners, you've circumvented the stakeholder management process, the stakeholder management knowledge area. That's what you did. It's not ideal. When you have several stakeholders, You let the voices be heard. You employ enough people. When you've got over $500 million in your pocket, that is a very, very small undertaking. So when I see you doing all of these initiatives and you cannot spend enough time and money and resources on making the 7th edition great, greater than the 6th, it makes us lose hope. What are you doing? What are you doing with all those revenues? You're targeted. Look, let me remind you, and honestly, I guess we should call this PMI receives some lessons on their own PMBOK guide. Because if you're following what is here, my friends, at PMI, you realize that this is gold. I don't think you folks know the gold you got. You don't know. That's why you're trying to reinvent the wheel. And there's nothing wrong in reinventing a wheel with more bling and more functionality, but just going for a run around the park when you don't even need to. Everything is right here. Look, if you talked to people, they could tell you what to chop out of the 6 that ain't good, and you'd have probably been able to chop off at least 50%. And when I say ain't good, I'll say maybe not as relevant. You could have got people to help you do that, and you could have come up with a much better product. The 7th edition could have been so much better than where I'm seeing it headed. And the little glimpse that many of us have had, and you can't blame us for having this opinion because you refuse to, again, share the draft. Like Moses in a cave. We don't want to come out with the tablets. Not good. How and where can I learn about the development of the PMBOK guide? Oh, give me a break. Dead end. Instead, you're posting stuff on projectmanagement.com that really doesn't tell us, look, we're practitioners, professionals. We need to know what's going into the soup pot. Don't just tell us, oh, we got 200 good chefs in the kitchen. No. We want to know what's going in that pot. All right. Will the PMBOK 7th edition be translated to other languages? Yes, yes, yes. I cannot fault them on that. They do a brilliant job on that. Fantastic job on that. Actually, I would say a large percentage, about 70% of what is done is very appropriate and good. But when it comes to the PMBOK guide, why am I so heated and passionate about it? Is because I know the value it offers to my personnel, my clients, myself, my students, so if you're going to do a job, do it well. Do it well. How does this change fit with other published approaches? Who cares? Who cares? I don't. All I know is the PMI that I've known, and they have always followed a great process in putting this together. That's why if you take a look at the 4th edition, the 5th edition, the 6th edition, you see my name in there because I am one of those PMs that takes the energy and the effort to review every single page, just like many of you. And you see they didn't give you that grace to do it this time. I don't know how you feel about it. I'm not very impressed. So the 7th edition, you might very well find my name in there because of the draft. And honestly, I don't really care at this point. It's not about having your name in a publication. It's about following process and principles that the organization, the number one, or wherever you rank them. I ranked PMI as number one. I still rank PMI as number one. It's a great organization, great people. You see, the people make the organization, not the management. It's the people, it's the volunteers. And so many of you volunteers, don't get me wrong, I really appreciate all that you folks have done, but I don't think PMI proceeded in a very fair manner with the 7th edition. They could have done a lot better. A whole lot better. So the reason why I'm not really bothered about Prince 2, ITIL, and how all this stuff was put together is because I know how previous editions were put together. And not every PMBOK guide has been a home run. There's always going to be bumps and impediments in the road, but at least everyone who could and cared to was called to the table, not this secret Illuminati meeting in Pennsylvania. Or wherever, virtually, the virtual Illuminati, I don't know, whatever it is, they just didn't proceed properly. Will Agile Principles be embedded in the PMBOK Guide 7th edition? We know practitioners are tasked, just answer the question, come on, where's the answer? To ensure PMBOK Guide 7th edition remains relevant, we are focused on providing flexibility. They still have not answered the question. All right, I probably have to read the whole thing. We know practitioners are tasked with identifying the right delivery approach, predictive, adaptive, or hybrid, to get the job done and deliver value. To ensure the PMBOK Guide 7th edition remains relevant, we are focused on providing flexibility to assist the practitioner. I guess that means no, probably. The pending standard for project management presents 12 principles of project management. This not specifically agile principles. Rather, the principles are considered universal, regardless of the approach. Let me give you my honest opinion about those 12 principles. Have you read the Agile Practice Guide? Have you turned to page 9? Let me help you go to page 9 here. I don't think people have turned to page 9. If you go to page 9, what do you see? The 12 principles behind the Agile Manifesto, but these are not really Agile alone. Better use of time would have been taking these 12 Agile Manifesto principles and saying, okay, do we have anything that we can improve? Not just creating something for creating sake. I think the Agile principles are spot on. And from my little reviews that I did of the draft of the 7th edition over 365 days ago, I can tell you that my preference is the Agile Manifesto principles. Seriously, I'll let you make up your own mind when you see them. All right, number 18, where will I find the inputs, tools, techniques, and outputs? PMI Standards Plus. PMBOK Guide 7th edition has expanded the breadth of tools. And honestly, that's okay. No one wants to go through a standard with reams and reams of ITTOs. So PMI, in that regard, I'm going to give you kudos for cutting some of them out. But I don't know how much damage you've done. So I'm kind of apprehensive. You know, like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I think that might have happened here. I hope not. I recently passed the CAPM exam. Does the pending new edition of the PMBOK Guide impact the validity of my certification? Congrats on earning your CAPM. Just answer the question, my goodness. The updates to standard for project management included in the PMBOK Guide 7th edition have no effect on the validity of your certification. All right, and with that, I am done with my part review, part rant. And anyone who didn't like it, no apologies. You make your own YouTube channel and go put out your own commentary. That is mine. I love the PMI. You probably don't love them more than I do, but I got to come real, come correct where they are concerned. All right, I hope you enjoyed my little rant and review of those FAQs. I think those FAQs are brilliant. And I'm going to put them in the chat. Let's see if we can do that. Those of you watching me live, if you got any questions, feel free to chat in. But I'm going to put in the link. Go read that tasty little document. And I hope everything I shared made sense for you. You take care. Those of you taking the exam, again, you don't need to keep twiddling your thumbs waiting for the 7th edition to manifest. As you saw from that document, PMI is not changing the PMP exam immediately to reflect the 7th edition, even whenever it comes out. So the funny thing is, just before I got on here, I went to Google to find out when the 7th edition was coming out. And Google gave me its opinion. Google said it's May of 2021. I don't know. We'll find out. All right. Thank you very much for joining me, my friends. I wish you all the very best in your project management endeavors. You take care, and bye for now.